Hey, Spencer, you having serious Wi-Fi issues? Anyone in here? I'm ending.
Oh, you got.
Yeah, Spencer, you're muted again.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, you were having Wi-Fi issues there for a minute. It was disconnecting you repeatedly.
Well, that's not good.
Yep, and we lost the title.
Okay.
That's not good. Okay, anywho, well, we will...
Here. All right. I'll go ahead and work on the title real quick.
Okay, and put in the hashtags real quick. For
Yep.
Robert's mom, are you guys the two people in here? Send a reaction if you're the ones in here. So when you hit that button, it'll send a little clap that everybody can see. Yep, okay, we got people in here. Nice. Awesome. Hey! Hey, peoples.
Hello, hello.
We are just experiencing a little bit of, I guess, technical difficulties. Kind of cliche, but definitely what's going on here. Disconnecting repeatedly. Oh, they did one person away. Okay, so you got the title fixed?
Yes, give me just a second. I'm adding the hashtags.
Okay.
All right,
Awesome.
there we go.
There we go. Yep. Okay, so right off the bat, first off today, we are talking about the impeachment trials and all that little fun stuff right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're just going to be talking about how the constitutionality of them, they're a big waste of money, stuff like that. There's a lot to say about them, and if anyone has anything to say, go ahead and type on in. We're definitely always interested in people saying something. Currently, I have two people of who I know both of them. You guys. But hopefully we'll have some more later.
I'm sure we will.
Yep. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start off here. Right in the beginning of this, obviously we were all pretty. I wouldn't say we were shocked that that this happened, because we kind of expected that the Democrats were going to try to pull an action like this again, because
Oh, yeah.
well, it's hypocritical really, because they started off right in the beginning. They had tried to, well, back when Trump was voted in, they declared that it was fraud, and they did whatever they could to get him out. And now they did the same thing now that the Republicans are doing the same thing with Trump. It's been, condemned, saying that we're all wrong and we're lying and everything. It's really just a hypocritical cycle back and forth. But we do have this impeachment process, which is completely unconstitutional. And in my opinion, and the opinion of many people that I know, it is only an effort to discredit all the Trump supporters and make them look like they have no clue what they're talking about. They're just following this fearmonger who is just, they're just doing what he says. All Trump supporters, myself included,
Yep.
and Spencer, we are all just lemmings following this man, and it's not true. It's not, and it's wrong, really. I mean, it's an act to discredit such a great man and such a great president. And I mean, I know he's not perfect, but this is really just not right, and it shouldn't be this way.
And on top of that, I think a lot of what they're trying to do is they're trying to go down in history as the people who impeached a president twice. When, first of all, okay, you're saying he's not the president anymore, so you can't impeach the president twice. Actually, the Constitution specifically states in Article 2, Section 4, the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Now, of course, a high crime would definitely be inciting riots and other things like that, where it's a direct threat to democracy. But he didn't. That's just the facts of it, and you can watch the tape. It's very interesting to see that they condoned the BLM riots for months and months, but as soon as this riot went down, which no one is saying it's a good thing, it was terrible, it was disgraceful, but the president specifically said we need to peacefully do this. We need to peacefully march and peacefully gather.
Exactly, yeah. He said, yeah, right in the middle of his talk, and I think anyone who's really done any of the research by themselves and have actually looked into what he said, that you've seen that he really did say. He said, we're going to march peacefully. He didn't tell them, and he didn't even egg them on. It's not like this has been going on for months, and then the speech was just the latest thing. No, he hadn't said it before then. He hadn't said it at all. He never, ever said, I want you to commit acts of violence, and he never implied in those acts of violence, because he never even said it in the first place, that he wanted a riot of Capitol Hill. He always said peaceful, stay peaceful, be civil. Don't resist the cops, don't hurt the cops, don't fight against them. There are, we respect them, we love them, and they're our allies in this. And he really, there was no inciting violence. And yes, like Spencer said, exactly. If Trump had said, I want you to march to Capitol Hill and burn the building to the ground, then we would be having a different conversation right now.
Exactly.
For two different things. One, that's completely against his nature, so that would be something to consider. But he never said that, and that's not remotely close to what he said. It was never even implied, and as such, it's really a shame, and it's such a disappointment. Really, I had really hoped that it was going to be okay. We wanted Trump to win. We wanted Trump back in. But I had hoped that once the Democrats got once they got Biden in, then they were going to be like, okay, we're good now. But this whole impeachment process is nothing more than a way to discredit every single Trump supporter. And actually, something that my father told me. Go ahead.
Well, that's one of the big things that they're doing is they're the career politicians. They've been in there for literal decades doing this. And then Trump came in, and he's a rich guy, but he had never run for office. He wasn't a career politician in the slightest, and he won. And that made them so mad that they could not beat him. And so what they're trying to do is discredit the fact that anyone outside of career politicians can get in. They're trying to discredit that, and they're trying to use that as there's no hope but to vote for the people who are already in. They're trying to just close it off to newcomers and anyone who could challenge their establishment.
Yeah, exactly. It's disrespectful in the highest ways. I mean, there's no there's no respect for either side. And I mean, obviously, as Republicans, we hate. I wouldn't say we hate. I think hate is a strong word, but there's a strong dislike and a hate for some individuals against the Democrats, and the same thing on the Democrat side. We're all those people, and obviously we have feelings on the other side. But I hate how there is such a thick cloud of deceit and lying coming from what's mainly coming from the career politicians of the Democrats. You don't see the more middle line and newer. Oh, actually, I guess that's not true, because you got AOC and others like her who are really really over far left. Socialist. Yeah. So I guess that's not entirely true, but you have the people who are mainline on both sides of the Republican and Democrats, and they're like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. And so in the end, this whole trial, and we've already seen there's like a 40 to 50.
It was
40
44 senators said right off the bat that this was unconstitutional. You need 67, which is a 2/3 majority, to actually impeach him. So unless they can convince,
it's not happening.
Yeah, that's 11 people that you have to convince. And even with some turncoats like Romney, you're still not going to get those 11 senators to vote him out.
Yeah, exactly. It's not happening. Yeah, you're not gonna that kind of twist around. It's not gonna happen. And most people and even the people who voted that it was constitutional, they're looking at it now and they're like, this isn't gonna happen. He's gonna be acquitted. So I mean, two things can happen here. We can get a completely super rare. I'm not gonna say never because I don't know. I've memorized every single vote that's ever happened in the American government. No, but I mean, for them to turn around that much, I definitely would say that it's, if not completely unlikely, then just so highly unlikely that it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And you got people so the only way that it could even happen is if there were some kind of miracle turnaround where you automatically just have people who are like, oh, well, he's going to be acquitted, so I'm going to go ahead and vote that he doesn't get acquitted or something like that. It's not going to happen. In the end, he's probably going to be acquitted, and this whole thing is just a sham, and it's really just it's a propaganda is what it is.
Well, and I think, depending on how they do it, this may just backfire on them, because right now the American public is watching it. They're saying, okay, off the bat, 44 senators are obviously going to say no, and if the American public is looking at it and saying, okay, listen, we've got some really trying times right now. The lockdowns are hurting us economically. We've got all kinds of, violence has gone up in the big cities, especially where they're trying to defund the police. And the American public is basically saying, listen, we've got some actual problems here, and yet you're going to waste our time and our money that we are making in a hard time for you on something that we know isn't going to work out anyways. The whole thing they're trying to do is, look at us, we impeached him, but I really hope this backfires on him in the end.
Yeah, it's a narrative that they're trying to write there, because if they were to win, then when they're done, the whole it's been coming for a while, and we're kind of expecting that down the line there's going to be a breaking point where either everything is fixed or everything comes to heads, and there's going to be violence, right?
Yep.
It's something that people on both sides have said that this is coming to a head pretty fast. And if they were to impeach him, then the narrative that they have is a discredit against every single action that a Trump supporter were to take. So okay, let's say in the future there's riots in the streets on a scale that we haven't seen yet with BLM or anything, and it's pretty much partisan. It's left versus right, and Trump supporters versus anti-Trump supporters. Okay, just for laugh's sakes, let's say that happens. Okay, if then the politicians and the Democrats who have a current majority and everything, they can sit there and say, these people are wrong. We know they're wrong because we impeached their president, we impeached their leader, and we convicted him of being a criminal. So they can say, we know that we are right, so the left is the people who are right in this. You need to support them. That message would be streamed to all the millions and millions of people who are on the middle, who are on the fence, who don't have an opinion either way. So
exactly,
you don't know. You gotta. It's just an act to say they were wrong, we were right, and it's wrong, and it shouldn't be that way.
Well, and on top of that, they're wrong, we're right. That mentality is just kind of childish, honestly. Are we in 6th grade? He stole my pencil, and arguing over petty things like that.
Exactly, yeah. It really is petty, and they're not trying to accomplish anything. They're not really working for a goal. They're really just working for the act of humiliating another group, and it's a socialist agenda in the end. That's really what it is.
Yep.
They're only working towards the negativity of someone else, and an act like that is just, it's the lowest form of politics. There's what my dad's always said, and what me and my family have always been taught is, there's two ways to build up the highest skyscraper in town. You can either build up yours the tallest, or you can tear everybody else down.
Yep,
And
exactly.
I'm not saying that Trump is a perfect person and he has never tried to discredit someone and tear someone else's tower down, right? Because I think everybody's done that, right? There's always someone who's like, I'm angry at this person and I'm going to make them look bad. And I'm not saying that he's an angel by any means, but I am saying that, yeah, he's not a perfect person, but I am saying that the actions that he has taken are not in that regard, you know? And so this whole thing is all about tearing everyone else on the left. There's two towers right now, right? There's the left and the right, and you have the far left, including Pelosi, AOC, Schumer, people that are working for them, funding for them, supporting them. You got all those people, and they are only trying to tear down the right's tower. They aren't working to build their tower up. They aren't trying to make themselves look good. They're just trying to tear everything else on the other side down. And that's actually a really common stream in politics. So I'm not going to say that that is specific right now to only the left. I mean, that happens on both sides. Every time there's an election, you get this stuff. Go ahead.
And you can see that on almost a macro scale in terms of the lockdowns and stuff, right? We were right before the pandemic and the CCP virus. We had the best economy we have had in years. I mean, unemployment was at an all-time low. Everything was going fantastic. And then the lockdown started, and it crippled our economy for quite a while, and we're trying to rebuild back, but I don't remember exactly where I heard it. There's an estimate that said approximately 1/3 of small businesses that shut down during this pandemic will never open again. That is hundreds and thousands of jobs that have just been lost, all because the Democrats went, okay, you know what?
How do you impeach somebody who's not even the president? Exactly. Impeachment is remove a president.
Yeah.
How do you remove somebody who you said wasn't president? Or is he still the president? Because y'all lied and stole the election. Not y'all, but I'm saying, why are we spending taxpayer time and dollars to impeach somebody who y'all said didn't win the election? Who y'all said that the voter fraud didn't even matter because we're going to push this
Continue on Bloomfield.
Thank you.
Exactly, yes. She's so right.
That's the exact point. It's such a waste of money.
Yeah, it's a waste of money. It's wrong because he isn't the president, which means he violates it constitutionally.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Hey, on the topic of the economy, maybe if we had actually done a serious lockdown at the beginning of the pandemic and given relief to small businesses instead of fiddling around with their big government Republican dicks, we wouldn't be in this situation.
And you have some good points there in terms of the big government. I think one of the biggest problems we've had is that the government decided to step in. The 9 most terrifying words you can get from someone is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Big government, how is a bureaucrat in Washington going to manage what I do? They don't know where I live. They don't know my life. I know how to run my life better than they do.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm not going to speak to saying exactly what we could have done in the past because I don't know all the facts, right? There are people in the government and Trump's administration and everything, and they knew more what was going on than me. I only knew what was really going on around me here in our community. I don't know everything, but yes, I mean, there are things that we could have done, but I think Trump did a really good job. And I mean, there's just so much that doesn't line up and it just doesn't make any sense. Real quick, one sec, here we go.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. And they're going real hard to impeach him and to silence him. I don't know about anybody else, but if I had a secret that I didn't want nobody to tell, and I knew somebody knew it, I'd try to keep them quiet too. So what is it that he know? Oh, I know what he know. He know that y'all are ratchet and y'all are evil, and he wants to break it up, and y'all don't like that. So again, we're impeaching somebody who you said wasn't the president. That is pretty scary and should be scary to everybody in this entire planet, because that's some fuck shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's not the president. That's the whole point. You cannot impeach someone who isn't the president. And so it's confusing for everyone who looks at this with common sense, and they're like, wait a second. In the Constitution, the president, vice president, and all civil officers in the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Number one issue right there. He's not the president anymore. He lost.
Exactly.
Whether or not that was fraud or not, that's another debate, but he's not the president. And so you're trying someone for something that he didn't do. I mean, well, yeah, he didn't do it, but you're also trying someone who doesn't fill the position anymore.
It sets a terrible precedent, because if we can, right now, right, as soon as you're done being president, you are a private citizen who has the rights and the privacy, hence the private, of a private citizen. And it's impeaching a private citizen for something that maybe they did, maybe they didn't, who cares? It sets a terrible precedent of what they can do to them, right? They're not only trying to stop him from running again, really, that's part of what they're doing. And not only stops him from running again, but it says once you as a conservative are done with your career, we're not done with you, and we are going to keep disparaging you until everyone hates your guts.
Exactly. Yep, that's so true. All right, real quick.
It don't seem like it was the government that stepped in. It seemed like the corporation stepped in and said, hey, what are y'all doing? That's not what we asked y'all to do. No, it seemed like but I'm glad that this is coming out, because it gets to expose to everybody just the type of buffoonery that goes on in this Senate, in this country. These people don't care about us. They don't, left wing, right wing, all the same bird. No matter who's in office, it has not done anything to improve our lives. But now we got this president.
Yeah,
I have to say she makes some really good points. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there is I have to say that I believe Trump was different. He really did care for the common person. He worked towards them. He wasn't working to further his career. You know, you see a common trend. It's all about re-election, right? I want to get back in. So they only work to make themselves look good, and they don't care if it may affect other people in other ways. They just care about getting the majority vote, right? They only want that vote. And once they get that vote, they're happy.
Yep, and that's part of what President Trump tried to do going in is, the saying, drain the swamp, drain the swamp. There are swamp creatures on both sides. It's not just on the left. There are a lot of Republican career politicians who just are swamp creatures, and they really don't care except to have that power. And it's kind of absolutely a sad thing that the people that are most qualified for office and who would probably do the most good aren't going to run for it, because that's not what they want.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here we go. One more.
He doesn't have any previous political experience, yet he's managed to see all the unrighteous stuff that's going on and unfair trade deals that's going on with China, all the unfair things that's going on with people's healthcare prescriptions and things like that. He's trying to make a change to help people, and they don't want him to help anybody. That's scary. People can't see that. Are we that dumb as a people? I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect point. He is not a career politician, and he came in with the knowledge that you would hope someone who has spent their whole life in government should have had. But as a businessman, he was the perfect person, and he did the perfect job. I don't think he could have done really any better. He did everything he could, and he was fought on every single turn. There were millions of dollars spent on FBI investigations, which turned up nothing. There was an attempted impeachment once. They're trying to impeachment illegitimately again. That he did everything he could, and he was really the perfect candidate for that. There's nothing else to really say. That Donald Trump was the perfect person, and it's really sad that there isn't people who are, as career politicians, you would expect that they look at what the people want, and they're like, okay, wait a second, this is what they need. We need to help them here. But a businessman who has spent his life, looking out for himself, because that's what businessmen do, right? They work to build up their business. He was the person who, is actually kind of ironic, was the best suited for looking out for everybody else.
Yeah, and I know there are a lot of, I'm a personal Ronald Reagan fan. I know a lot of the right people, especially when former Vice President Biden got sworn in. I know a lot of Republicans were saying, I wish we had a Reagan back. I wish we had, kind of a classical conservative. And I'm a fan of Reagan, but I think President Trump came in right when we needed him. His thinking as a businessman rather than, Reagan was great, but he still was somewhat of a career politician. He was governor of California, and we really needed someone who was a businessman who actually understood the people. Half of those career politicians in Congress haven't met the people in forever.
Exactly. Yep, that's so good.
I think Trump did a really great job at inciting hundreds of his own domestic terrorist followers to storm the sacred place of our democracy. That was awesome. Great job, Donald.
Okay, no. Wait, here's the problem with that. Donald Trump never said that he wanted people to commit violence. His messages were peace, peace, peace. He wants peace.
Yep.
Peacefully protest. Peacefully do this. Peacefully do that. He didn't say it at that rally right before the Capitol storming. He didn't say it before that. He never said it before that. It was never even implied. It's not a message that he tried to convey at all.
Well,
and if you... Okay, go ahead real quick, yeah.
I will have to disagree, not with you, Colson. I will have to disagree. I think what happened at the Capitol was terrible, just as the BLM riots are terrible. The fact that people did die from it, I believe one woman was shot and at least one person had a heart attack from it. That's terrible. That is something that should sadden us as a country. So whether the election was stolen or not, we are a country that relies on peaceful protest, and a violent riot by anyone is not excusable.
Yeah. So I was watching the Senate proceedings live before the Capitol storming. So I watched it was all confusing. Like, why are they all of a sudden stopping the meeting? They aren't talking anymore. Everybody seems confused here. What's going on?
Yep.
I was watching that, and then I later went back and I watched all of the exterior footage, right? If you really watch those videos, you can see that there is a Trump protest, okay? Peaceful protest that's going on outside of the police lines, right? And then you see a couple of individuals who admittedly do look very, very similar to Antifa and BLM kind of people, all dressed in black. They're wearing the face mask. They got the bats or whatever on their backs, crap like that. They've got backpacks that they're supposed to last all day, and they were dressed all in black. I'm not saying that every person who's dressed in pitch black, like ninja outfit kind of crap is an Antifa guy. But the way they were acting and behaving made me think of it. It was strikingly similar. And there were people in the end that were convicted and found out that they were ex-Antifa. So there are people who went into a peaceful protest, and just like they did at BLM, because yes, there were a very good number of peaceful BLM protests, you had these violent people who wanted to stir them up, who wanted to bring violence. They went in, they stirred everybody up, they made them angry, and then violence ensued. And also, there were so many people at that protest, right? If Donald Trump had told, as people keep saying, right? If Donald Trump had incited violence, right, and this was all him, and we were just lucky somehow that we didn't have thousands of people running through the Capitol Hill building and protesting and burning stuff. If Trump had said we want that building burnt down, that building would have been burnt down, okay?
Yeah.
He didn't say that. He wanted peace. Right? The total number of people in that building was I think it was less than 200 in the end. Right? That was very, very small number, especially compared to how many people were outside. If everybody outside had tried to get inside, it would have been a different thing. But if you were watching throughout the whole thing and you went back and watched videos or whatever, you just saw people that were just sitting. They were sitting there on the steps waving their flags, and then you had a small select group of people who went inside, and a very even smaller group of people than that got violent. Most of them were good. If you want, for instance, when you're walking through the circuit chamber, cannot remember the name at the second. When they were walking through the pillars and on the path, you saw almost everybody walking on the pillars calmly, quietly, and they weren't bashing stuff in, they weren't breaking stuff. It's a stark contrast to a BLM riot, right? They weren't bashing stuff in, they were walking through, and most of them were just taking pictures. They looked like tourists. We knew that they were peaceful protesters.
Well, and
they
if
weren't
you
violent.
If you look at videos from at the time that this was happening in other parts, I don't remember if it's that specific building or the building next to it, but there were actual tourists just standing about enjoying the day. I mean, if they had started a fire or, an insane amount of damage, that would not have been happening.
Yep. And also, I'm just going to say this before we do another message here. There were police who, another stark contrast to a real riot, a BLM riot, and what you would actually consider to be an actual riot. There were police who were literally walking with these people. Like, they're walking and they're talking on their walkie-talkie, and they're letting all their companions know. They're letting all the other cops know, hey, there are people here. This is how many there are. But they're not sitting there saying, I'm getting beat down. I'm getting hit in the face. They're all around me. They're destroying stuff. That's not what they were saying. They're just saying they're walking right there peacefully with them. There were when the guard came in and the Capitol security armed, tacked up and with their rifles and everything. When they came in, right, they were literally walking in their squads right through the middle of the crowds. Their guns weren't up at attention, right? They weren't looking for a target to see if anyone was coming at them. They were just there. They were just aware. They were told they had to go there. They were told that they had to get the people to leave. And as soon as the rest of the peaceful protesters who were sitting outside and who weren't being violent inside, as soon as they saw these people there, they were like, oh, okay, this is a message for us to go. We need to leave now. And then they did. They left. There wasn't any violence about it.
Now,
right.
Of course, there were terrible things done while this was happening, and we don't agree with that. We condemn it totally. But the left, what they're going to do is they're going to sweep all the BLM Antifa stuff that happened over the summer. They're going to sweep that under the rug as peaceful protests, peaceful but mostly fiery, mostly peaceful protests. They're going to sweep that under the rug, and they're going to point to this one day. They're going to say, look, people died. It was the right, and they're going to use this against every conservative, every single conservative citizen, and even the middle of the road voters who they aren't right or they aren't left. They're kind of down the middle, but still condemn it, but don't agree with the far left. They're going to use that against everyone, and they're going to say, look, these people are dangerous, and they're going to use that to set a dangerous precedent against all those people.
Absolutely. That's so true. All right, here we go.
But why we not trying Maxine Waters? Wasn't she the same person that said, if you see a Republican get in their face, get all in their face? When you tell somebody to get in somebody's face, what does that mean? Like, what am I supposed to do when somebody comes in my face but protect myself? So that was an incitement of a riot to me, but I guess that's okay because it came from the left side. I'm done.
Yep, that's true. They do that. Yep, that's so true. They just sit there and they're so hypocritical about it. She was right there. We saw her on video. She said, make a mob, get a crowd, get around them, get on them. That's getting in someone's face, and that's how violence happens, because you don't see Trump protesters, peaceful protesters, getting up in someone's face and getting violent with them, right? I'm gonna get up in your face. I'm gonna sit right there. Like, the next thing I'm gonna do is punch you. That's what everybody feels like. As people, we have emotions and we want to protect ourselves naturally. It's our instinct. Someone gets in our face, we feel threatened, right? So in the BLM protest, right, you had BLM walking up to people and getting in their face, and you had people who were either not being political at all, or you had people who were political and they were Trump supporters, stuff like that, whatever it was. And their first interaction, their instinct isn't, oh, I'm a conservative and this is a threat against me. No, what they're saying is, this is a person, they're in my face, I feel threatened, and that's how the violence happens. They feel threatened, so they go to protect themselves, whether that was with a weapon, whether that was with their fists. I don't care what it is. They want to protect themselves. They want to make sure that they are safe. It's an instinct to protect yourself, and it's just people are just working against them. They're saying, we're going to go against you, and we're going to get up in your face. We're going to try to hurt you, and you have all these Trump protesters who they aren't doing that, right? They aren't getting in the cops' face and trying to hurt them, except for the very, very, very small aggravated proportion that went into the Capitol building. That wasn't what was happening. If this was okay, let's put it in perspective this way. If you had taken all those people, okay, and let's just shift what their beliefs were. Let's say that every single person that was an individual in a BLM Antifa riot, right? That would have been a different scenario. Every single building on Capitol Hill would have been burnt to the ground. There would have been deaths in the hundreds. I mean, there would have been a violence that we had not yet seen from any BLM riot. But the difference was, that was a Trump protest. Those are people who respect this country, they respect our government, and there were a small group of people who were either egged on, already had the belief, or who just wanted to be inside, and they went in, and then there were very, very sad and unfortunate things that happened, and those are absolutely appalling, and it's horrible. But, you can't sit there and say that all Trump protesters are evil and stuff like that. And so, I can't remember her name. You make a very good point about Maxine Waters. She egged on violence. She was the pinnacle epitome of exactly what was happening with the BLM Antifa riots. It was just get people angry, make them angry, get them to do stuff that they would not otherwise do if they hadn't been egged on.
Yep, it's the
stuff like that.
The I don't remember the exact term. The power of the mob, or the logic of the mob, where if you're part of a mob, suddenly you lose yourself in the mob, and you would do things that you normally wouldn't as a rational single human being.
Yep, it's the social aspect of people. Yep, it really is. Okay, here we go. There's one more.
Donald Trump brought out more people in history that I've ever seen.
Yep.
I've never seen more people gather. Actually, Donald Trump and Suleiman, I've never seen more people gather for two people on one day. But Donald Trump brought out more people than any politician that we've ever seen. Anybody that was in D.C. know that it was millions. It was over 1 million there. It was a lot of people there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's why they didn't show you the footage of the crowds of people that were in D.C. They didn't show you how big that crowd was, what was actually going on in D.C. They only show you the Capitol. But I think that they're very scared of him, and they're showing how scared they really are of him. And what they're doing is they're just increasing his popularity. So once they lose again, it's really going to make him more.
Yep. And that's the forced perspective that they're using is, close up against the rioters at the building. Look at the doors. They're all here. But if you look at basically the surrounding area, it's either peaceful or no one's there. And it's that forced perspective that they're using where they're saying, look over here, look over here. Don't look at the reality of the situation. Look at just this small part of the reality that we want you to focus on.
It's about perspective. It really is. If you look at everything can be judged in the whole world, can be different, changed on your perspective, right? So an 8-year-old would have a different perspective on anything. Okay, let's just take politics. And an 8-year-old will have a different perspective on politics than an adult would. An 8-year-old wouldn't care. Okay, doesn't even bother him. But if you gave an 8-year-old a Lego set, that 8-year-old would look at it like it was the holy grail. An adult would look at it and go, it might be fun. Like if they liked Legos, it might be fun. Maybe that's something I want to do. But it's all about perspective, right? If you restrict someone's point of view to this one isolated area and you just flood them like they do on all the left news networks like CNN and Washington Post, and you get all this bias, right? If you just sit there and you flood them with one very limited perspective, that's all people are going to see. That's all they're going to believe. That's why you hear people all the time saying, looking at the midnight news is how you lose your faith in humanity. Right? You get this constant flow of negativity, and you're just like, wow, Where's the positive? It's you gotta go out and you gotta seek out positive shows just so you can feel like you have faith in humanity again. Because you just see this negative all the time. You see death and you see criminal actions. You see people just constantly hating each other, and it's all about perspective. So limiting people's view of the Capitol, there was a reason they did that. It wasn't on accident. They did it because they wanted to force perspective, like Spencer said. They wanted to create the view and show to everybody, look, look, look. Trump said go, and he said protest, but they exclude the peaceful part of that. He said protest, and they're going and they're protesting. Look how many of them are here. Look, they've hurt people.
Yeah, we think that protest means riot, therefore he incited a riot.
Exactly, which is wrong because they've actually said protest all of last year, and that meant a different thing because burning people's houses and launching fireworks and rockets into people's houses in the middle of the night and burning them down and going in with matches and torches and lighting their houses on fire, burning down car dealerships, burning down people's private businesses that they worked their whole life to build. Yeah, that's a peaceful protest by the left's point of view. And so it's horrible that this one thing, which was largely peaceful and an overwhelmingly large majority, like a 99% peaceful, and they said this is a violent protest and everyone's horrible. It's just wrong. It's wrong. There's nothing else to say about this. It was wrong and it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Here's another one.
Yep.
I never seen so many governments scared of one man. Like, these governments are more scared of Trump than they were of Bin Laden, man. They're scared of Trump. They do not want him to ever hold any political power. You know what I mean? True. And it's very, very obvious. You know, these people talked all this shit about him, and you know, all of this rioting, everything stopped. All of the COVID numbers went down when he left out of office. All of the rioting stopped. All this shit was all put together just to take this one man out. And you can just tell a lot about a man by who his enemies are. So I think they just increasing his popularity. They know that the next presidential election or next round of elections, they're going to have to cheat on all of them because ain't nobody voting. Not nobody that I can see with common sense is going to vote Democrat.
Well,
and that's the thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is he was the first person to really pose a threat to them, right? Everyone else that has run, I mean, look at the last couple elections. Bush, Obama, Romney ran in, what was that, 2012, and they're all career politicians, and they know, even though they're on opposite sides, they know, okay, this guy's going to protect me because he's a politician like me. Trump was the first real person to bring a threat to them and say, listen, I am draining the swamp, I am exposing these people, and when people are threatened like that, they react, and they reacted exactly like it. They said, no, we're not the bad guys. He's the bad guy. No. Don't listen to him. Listen to us. No. We need to get him off Twitter. We're going to ban him because he is actually legitimately threatening what we have, this very comfortable, powerful lifestyle we have.
Exactly. That's exactly it. He stirred up their narrative, right? He works against the normal thing. The normal career politician, what they're focused on, they're not focused on the people. They're focused on getting reelected. That's what they want. They just want to get there. They want to get their next election, and it doesn't matter who they have to burn and bury into the ground in order to get it. They will put dirt on anyway. They'll make it up. They'll expose whatever they can. This person said this word about what, right? This person, it doesn't matter who it is. They'll put any dirt they can. They'll put any dirt they can on anybody. And Trump was different because he wasn't working to put dirt on everybody. He was working to better stuff, right? He was an American citizen, an entrepreneur. He was a businessman, an entrepreneur, yeah. And he worked to better himself and his company for many, many years. He understands how to fix an economy. He understands how it works on a level that career politicians cannot. Like, they physically cannot understand that because they don't work for it. They don't care about the common American. They don't care to get their perspective. What they're worried about is the next election. Am I going to get in? and that's all they care about. That's it. That's where it ends. It doesn't matter what it takes to get there, and it doesn't matter what forced narrative they have to make up. And that's where you get the hypocrisy from both sides, because both sides want to prove that they were right in the effort to get there, even if they lose, right? So when they lose an election, they just like with 2016 when Trump got elected, they kept saying, "This is how great we." The Democrats kept saying, "This is how great we are. Trump's an evil person, yada yada yada." And in the end, they said it was fraud, right? And now Trump's had this, and it turned out to be a legitimate fraud this time, right? It was real. We have video footage of it happening, and it's different. They're just like, it's wrong. It's not real. Nope, it didn't happen. Didn't happen that way.
Nothing to see here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope. All right, here we go. Here's another one.
It's crazy how none of these politicians that are coming at Trump about what happened on January 6th, we all seen people setting fires in front of the White House, trying to climb the gates and all types of shit. We seen it with our own eyes. They were setting fires. They were doing all types of shit. We seen people throwing gasoline and fireworks on cops, running cops over with trucks, shooting cops. People destroying everything in their path. You know what I'm saying? Everything in their path. We seen people take over police stations and set up autonomous zones and all this shit. And none of them said nothing about it. They refused to even let Trump bring the troops in and stop, at least protect some of the businesses. None of them said nothing about it. But this man's one little comments they trying to say caused all this shit, man. Bullshit, man.
Exactly. Yeah, it's horrible. You have this one group who they were just, if you really look at it, right? Okay, let's look at just a very small percentage of people who went in the Capitol building, and that's even look at the smaller percentage of people who were actually violent inside the Capitol building, right? For them, their feelings that they were egged on, they didn't come out of nowhere, right? They came out of months of last year in 2020, watching BLM and Antifa go through the cities that they, as taxpayers, have paid to build from the ground up, right? They watched their cities that they love burn to the ground. They watched the cops that they respect and that they need and they love. They watched them get hit and beat and punched. They watched people who were counter protesters. They watched people getting Molotov cocktails thrown on them. They watched gasoline. They watched all this stuff happening, and all the while, they have people on the left who were saying this. They were saying that these people are peaceful. This is right. This is what we should be doing, and they are infuriated. The whole right side is so angry at it. They're done. They're fed up. All right. So the violence in Capitol Hill, as much as it was a horrible thing that happened, you can kind of see where the anger came from, right? Anger doesn't come from nowhere. If someone's just a couch potato and does nothing their whole life, doesn't have an opinion either way, they weren't going to be the kind of people who were in the Donald Trump, the Trump rally there. They weren't going to be those people who were there. So they were there because they already had feelings, and those feelings were just egged on, right? It came from somewhere.
It's like the situation. If you kind of scale it down, it's almost like you're getting beat up. This guy is beating you up for a minute straight, and finally, no one's coming to help. Everyone's just standing by, and then finally you're like, you know what? I got to punch him back, or else he's gonna keep going. And
exactly right.
That's not to say that what happened was good, but you can kind of understand where it's coming from. This anger of nothing is happening, and I keep getting ragged on.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's you gotta look at why did it happen, right? This anger didn't come from nowhere. Obviously, it's sad that it happened, but it's understandable why it happened. This makes sense. We knew this was coming. Okay, wait, we got another one right here.
Yep, go ahead.
And it's also crazy the double standard the left has when the Trump supporter was executed in Washington. Executed, put on his knees and shot in the back of the head. But no one says anything about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually haven't even heard about that, so that's another thing.
Let me look it up.
Yeah, I'll look that up right now. I haven't even heard about that, so that's another good thing that apparently they covered up. And you see, okay, for instance, there was one think it was in during the Kenosha riots. There was an older gentleman who was a Trump supporter, and he was eating his dinner on a outside on the sidewalk outside a restaurant, and they came by, and this lady came up and stole his beer, and and some people started getting physical. Right, they started walking up, they started taunting him, yelling at him. A couple people started throwing things to him. I saw a rocket thrown. There were bottles being thrown at him. This dude was just sitting there eating his dinner. The reason he was attacked, he wore a Trump hat. Right, that's horrible. That should never have happened. And in the end, he ended up going up and defending them because they attempted to hurt his wife. Right, so he's like, "No, that's it. You're done." Right?
Yeah, you can hurt me.
I think it was a bottle
you can
that hit
annoy
his.
me. You
Yeah,
can't hurt
you
my
can
wife.
hurt me and annoy me, but you're not going to hurt the people I love. And so, I think it was a bottle that hit her in the head or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was just a glint that kind of flew through the camera's perspective. But then you just see him jump up, and he just starts chasing after these guys. What do they do? Yeah, exactly. They walk around him, and they start beating him to the ground. They punched him and beat him and kicked him in the head. This older gentleman who was doing nothing but enjoying his meal on the sidewalk with his wife, one-on-one, got egged on and attacked by a BLM rally. And they weren't even like it wasn't like they've been sitting there through an hour through like hundreds of or thousands of BLM protesters. No, this was just a smaller group that walked around the corner. They walked through this street. They saw this gentleman, and they decided, we're going to hurt him. What kind of human perspective? What is that? That's not okay. That's the kind of stuff that, like, if this weren't this kind of situation, this stuff should have been, like, you're going to prison for a long time for doing that, right? You can even say that some of the BLM protesters, especially the people who are higher up, they've been egging this on the whole time. The Democrats who have been saying that this is only peaceful protest and defending it. If you ask me, my perspective on that, and this might seem a little extreme for some people, I believe that is domestic terrorism, right? Domestic terrorism, they are creating a constant feel of fear for everyone, and they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, there's a whole narrative now. It's like, stay away from people with BLM stuff, right? You don't know what's going to happen there, right? You got to be scared. That's terrorism. And
Well, let me go ahead and read you the definition of domestic terrorism. If you just look this up, the committing of terrorist acts in the perpetrator's own country against their fellow citizens. Now, what is a terrorist act? Terrorism is generally defined as acts of violence, generally not promoted, but backed by the reason you're doing it is because of something political, and that's exactly what was happening.
Yep, that's exactly what was happening. That's it to a T. All right, here's another one.
But do you lot actually believe in BLM? Fuck them, man. Fuck that pussy, yo.
Yeah, a little too much. We're trying to keep it a little clean here, man. But yeah, BLM. It's not a real thing. It's just a cover, and that's why you don't see any of it now. Because as soon as the Democrats realized that it was actually hurting them in some ways, and that there were people who on the left were turning against them because they saw the violence and they weren't happy about it, they cut it off. You just watch that thing drop. It just disappeared overnight. The riots were there one night, and they were burning and looting, and the next night, gone. Didn't happen. They were all disappeared because it created a negative appearance against them, and it wasn't helping Biden to win, and he wasn't helping his election, and so they pulled their funding, they stopped supporting it, and then all of a sudden, look at that, people disappeared, right? There was no more violence, and that is just the perfect example, right? You can sit there and you can look at all this stuff, and you can say, you can sit there and you can look at it and you can say, okay, that was wrong, that shouldn't have happened, BLM is wrong this way, that's bad, bad, bad. In the end, the best example, Biden was running, it started putting a negative point of view on him, and then it disappeared. That is, it takes like 2 seconds of common sense to see that, wait a second. Okay, if that just disappeared, why did it disappear for him, but it doesn't help Trump at all, right? It does not make sense. It doesn't.
Yeah, that shows you how much the media, the mainstream, lamestream media, really controls things right now. Obviously, with the nice thing is that all the cable networks, CNN, MSNBC, all of them are realizing that cable is dying, and that social media, YouTube, podcast, all that are really what's coming back up to them.
Yeah.
And but right now they still, with that and all their online stuff, they still control a large swath of it, and they can use that to force your perspective and say, look, there's nothing here, don't worry about it, go back to sleep.
Yeah, honestly, throughout the BLM protests and everything, I wanted the truth. I wanted the footage, right? I don't want someone's commentary with a little blip of 2 seconds of this and that. I wanted the full footage. I want to watch the video so I can make my own analysis. I can see what was actually happening. I wasn't getting that from the cable networks. So I kept an eye on them so I could see what their narratives still were. But in the end, my source for actually finding stuff was social media, right? I currently don't have my social media. I deleted it due to some other stuff that they've been doing. But I couldn't do that. I didn't like that. I didn't like how there was this. I don't know how, but it's just a blatant lie, really. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It was a lie. They were going against them and they were creating a narrative. And so I spent my time on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. I got the raw data. I got what everybody was saying straight from the mouth of the beast. I was following people like Drew Hernandez on Instagram. Great guy, check him out. And he was a private reporter that went in the riots and disguised himself and got firsthand footage of everything. So he was right there with all the stuff. He got the footage right up at the front. He got the Kyle Kenosha, the Kenosha shooting. Kyle, I can't remember his last name. The 17-year-old who had a AR and shot another person, a protester.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yes, thank you, Kyle Rittenhouse. He actually had firsthand footage of that right from the Straight of the Beast. I think it came from one of his best friends, and he shared the raw footage with him, and then he posted on his account. I saw it, and if you watch the footage, the guy came up to him, and he had been beating other people inside of a gas station. So Kyle and a couple of his friends chased him off. Later, they were throwing Molotov cocktails at people. So it was just Kyle at this point, and he ran up and told him to stop. And the guy turned around and punched him, and Kyle started running away. The guy got up to him. Kyle got stuck in the car dealership. He was in cars, and there were people on the other side. He never even saw the people on the other side. He got stuck on the cars. He turned around, and the guy was right there. He panicked, fearing for his life, because the guy's chasing after him with like blood in his eyes, right? Feared for his life and shot him. Okay, if you ask me, it's a justified shooting. But that's just some of the instances. That's a perfect example of what's really going on there, right? Okay, Here we go. Here's another one.
Not even that, folks. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Now they got a vaccine. Really? Already? They ain't even mastered the flu vaccination, but they got the perfect vaccine just for the coronavirus. So either one of two things have to happen. Either the damn thing ain't safe, or they were already working on it all along. Which one is it? Which one is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not really going in for the COVID stuff, because I mean there are just so many theories on what's going on there. Joke in my family is COVID was created by Zoom because Zoom's market has gone up so much. But I'm not really gonna say a lot to the COVID stuff. I mean, at this point there isn't evidence in any direction, and so it's speculation really. We don't have evidence of why it happened. Whether it was the theory that China created the virus and launched it on the whole world, or it was someone in the Democrat Party. We don't really know who it was. We don't know how it came to be. It could have been completely natural. There's not enough knowledge for me to draw conclusions, and I don't like speaking on something that doesn't have the facts.
We can talk about it on another episode and dedicate an episode to that.
Absolutely, yeah. We can talk about that later.
All right, you want to take this call?
Yeah. What call?
Yeah, I have a call on.
No.
No? Okay.
No. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. We're gonna do another message here. You can't sit.
And how are you waiting to take something that you don't even know what's going to do to you? Everybody waiting I can't wait to get the vaccine. I thought it was highly contagious and could kill people if you get the coronavirus. So I'm going to let you give me the coronavirus for the good of mankind? And I'm already healthy? and it might kill me or make me sick, I didn't sign up for that. I'm not doing it. Miss my turn. Give it to one of the Republicans. I'm sorry. Give it to one of the evil people. Give it to them. In fact, you can give it to Joe Biden. You give my shot to Joe Biden.
Well, I personally, my belief is if you want to take it, that's up to you. There are some things. The Epic Times, actually, great newspaper, had an article a while ago. I don't remember all the details, but there were 50 people who died after taking the COVID vaccine. So it's, I don't inherently trust it just because most vaccines take years and years to develop and then perfect, right? But they got this one done in like 9 months, which, record, that's great, but doesn't necessarily speak to the highest degree of accuracy and goodness of the vaccine.
Yep, I'm not gonna say a lot to that. Just because I don't have the knowledge to go there, and there's a lot of inconsistency and everything. So I think we can save that for a later episode. But for right now, I'm just gonna say I do agree with what Spencer's saying. There's enough inconsistencies here, and what you've been saying, Del. There's enough inconsistencies to make people suspicious and wonder what's really going on there.
Yeah.
These people didn't do the things that they said they did. These people were paid agitators, paid for by rich folks' money. People don't really believe that rich folks do evil stuff. They do, especially if they got an agenda, and the agenda is to rule the world and keep you a slave. People, wake up, wake up, wake up.
There you go. Wake up, America.
That money, wake up, America. That money came from somewhere, right? Now, the BLM, they were very well funded. There was a lot of money in there, and so we know that we don't have evidence from budgets or tracing the money or anything. At least not that I have access to or the public has access to. But we do know that there was money coming from somewhere. Now, whether that was coming from like Bloomhouse, or that was coming from higher up career politician, Democrats, it's really kind of a shot in the dark, but you can make some pretty good assumptions based on everything, right? You could say this came from Twitter's president, or it came from anywhere really. But then you have instances where we do know for a fact that there was money given to BLM, and it was an act of appeasement because people were really scared, but they didn't show it and they supported it. For instance, Disney. I can't remember how it was. I know it was a large sum of money. I think it was a few $1 million. They donated to the BLM Foundation. And when I look at that, I see that, they did.
Wow.
They donated a few $1 million. And I looked at that and I go, that right there is just appeasement money, right? That's don't attack me. I've helped pay for what you're doing, right?
Yep.
But they didn't do that all summer, and it doesn't make any sense that they did that in the first place. It's bad.
And as my dad says, go woke, go broke. A lot of the time people go woke and all of a sudden everyone is like, no, this is not what we stand for in America. And Disney, part of their going woke, they have lost millions of dollars from various advertisers and people in their parks and all kinds of stuff. They have lost millions because they have put their social agenda above their customers.
Yep, that's so true. All right, here we go. No more.
And he did more. That's why 80 million people outside protesting about they vote, because they understand what this is about. They understand that this is a takeover by foreign interference. They understand that they're not going to let this happen. They understand that we don't want to live in a communist country. They understand that the unrighteousness has done something unrighteous, and they don't want it to. They want it to change. What's wrong with people, man? These people crazy.
Yeah, you have people who are like devout communists who have been on camera saying that they are communists or they're socialists, like Bernie Sanders, who he was in the Democratic primaries. He tried to run for president. He was a candidate. You have people like that. You have AOC. You have Schumer, who's got that shifty little agenda of his and all the crap that he does. You have Pelosi, who hasn't said that she's socialist, but it's one of those, your actions speak so loud I can't hear what you're saying kind of things, because everything she says, you just look at that and you go, okay.
And they're trying to push this communist socialist agenda on America, and right, they say, well, it hasn't worked in Russia, it hasn't worked in China, but it will work here. And of course there's that quote from Albert Einstein where he says insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's not going to be different just because it's in America. If it's the same system, it's going to fail.
People who believe, they just did it wrong. We can get it right. There was my dad told me a story of a history professor at Purdue University who him and his wife were communist believers, and their stance on it. And they're history professors. Like, what the heck? You would think that they would know the history, right? No, they didn't. They said this is going to work. We're going to get it right this time. We can do it different. I'm like, no, you don't think there are people who are smarter than you, but obviously a lot of the socialist leaders of the day, they are horrible people. But you don't think there are people who are smarter than you who try to do things differently. You don't think there are people who try to do this another way. If this could have been done a different way, it would have been. It doesn't work that way. Okay, the whole system is designed not to work that way. Socialism doesn't work for the good of the common people. If you were to take a trip to China or take a trip to Russia, you would see that so much of their population lives in like literal poverty, right? Okay, in China, albeit China has such an enormous population, so that's also a contributing factor, but they don't really care for the public good, right? So in China, you have these giant apartment buildings that are honestly, I don't think I've never seen an apartment building that big in my life. I've never been to a really big city like New York or anything, so they could be there, but you see these enormous apartment buildings, and people have literally built houses, and their whole family lives on the patios, the size of like our bathrooms that you see in an American house. They live with their family on the patios in a bathroom with sheet metal covering up to make a roof. You have people living on the inside in the actual apartments on the inside that are living like squatters, right? They're just sitting there, living as many people as they can. Socialism does not work. It doesn't help anybody, and it just takes from the people and gives to the powerful. Even though it's called socialism and the name sounds like it helps the social society. Yeah, social. It doesn't. It doesn't help anybody. It's horrible. And if you were to look at Marx's, I can't remember the founder's name, Marxist.
Karl Marx.
Founder. Yeah, thank you. His journal on the guide for Marxism is literally saying in there that he believes in the devil, right? He says, this is the devil's government, and that right there, if nothing else,
that should terrify you.
Is what it sounds like. That should terrify people. You just look at that and go, I don't care whether you are atheist, you hate every Christian in the world, I don't care what you are. The devil is a universally bad sign, right?
Yeah.
Anybody who follows the devil, I cannot say in good conscience is a good person. So when you support the thing that literally stands for evil as a universal symbol, I don't think there's good in that, right? So when you, especially in a government that rules so many people, it just it doesn't exist. That Marxism, socialism, communism, evil. That's all I have to say about that.
Yep, and socialism.
It's working with the people who still sleep. It's working with the people who still want to bow down and say racism. This ain't a racist. This ain't a race issue. This issue that's happening to all of us is happening to the people, the world, people, good people. Evil people are doing bad things to good people. It's about good and evil. It's not about Republican, Democrat, black, white. That's the divide and conquer mentality they want you to have. It's time to stop that. It's time to stop that. You're trying to take us all out. Every last one of us. They don't care. They want to depopulate the planet, and they want to start with who? They want to depopulate. They got an agenda. Georgia, what is it? The Georgia Monuments, the Georgia whatever. It says you have to maintain the population under 500 million. If you want to maintain population control, you can't maintain population control if you got 7 billion people on the planet. It's so many people. Somebody lost count. Can we find the person who lost count? And why are we trying to figure out how to maintain control? How you going to control me? Only God controls me, the creator, not man. What is going on?
Amen.
You had a great point there with the divide and conquer. thinking about that, the left divide. We'll go back to, I don't remember when it was, hundreds of years ago. The guy who came over with 500 conquistadors and took out I believe the South American natives. He didn't take them out with 500 conquistadors. He took one group of the Indians there who hated the rest of them. He said, "You know what? I'll give you firearms. You go and kill them." Right. And so that's kind of what the left is doing, is they're saying, okay, listen, you fit in the black group, you fit in the gay group, you fit in the trans group, and now I'm going to pit you all together against each other, and, the last one standing wins. And then all of a sudden, everyone is fighting everyone else, and the politician is the one who ends up on top. Everyone else suffers because of it.
Exactly. Just recently, a few days ago, Disney fired Gina Carano, the actor for the Marshal, Cara Dune, and The Mandalorian, for anybody who's watched that show. They fired her because she posted on Twitter creating an analogy for the Holocaust where Jews were targeted, and mainly in the beginning, they were one of the ways that the Nazis got information is that they turned their neighbors against the Jews by making all the Jews seem like horrible people, like they were how the Nazis viewed them, right? The Aryan superiority crap, right? That's how they made everybody think. And so when they created that fear, then neighbor turned against neighbor, and things just expanded on from there, right? They had information, they had the public who hated them, right? So that's what's going on here, right? You're turning neighbor against neighbor. You're turning friend against friend. You're dividing people, ruining relationships, dividing the country. Divide and conquer. There's a reason that is like the universal gold standard for winning a war. Divide and conquer.
If you can separate the big force into two smaller ones, it's much easier to crush them once at a time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the exact thing, right? And you think about a battlefield, right? If you have two opposing sides who are equal, right? They have equal forces, equal strength, right? If you can somehow use a tactical advantage to split, whether in half or in smaller groups, and slowly pick them off, there's reason also that pick them off is a phrase that's commonly used. If you can divide and conquer, you can win. And so that's what's going on here, and it should be a red flag for everybody, and it isn't, and it's really concerning.
Well, I will touch on Gina Carano again just for a sec. I will say I'm very proud of her that a lot of the people that say something that the left doesn't like, they go and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, please don't cancel me." And then it's too late. The mob doesn't care. I will say I'm very proud of her that she didn't bow down and say, wait, no, I want my job back. She stuck with it and said, "I'll see you later."
Yeah, despite the fact that I'm going to go ahead and out on a limb here and probably very common sense and say that she probably was making pretty decent penny from working for on the Mandalorian show.
I guarantee
despite,
you.
Yeah, without going back and begging for her job and the millions of dollars that she could, or hundreds of thousands or whatever it is that she earned from that, she said, "No, this is my belief and I'm sticking with it." And she doesn't know if she's going to get a job in the future. I would expect that she probably will, but she took the risk and said, "I believe that this is my belief and I'm going to stick with it. I said it. I don't regret it." That's the end of it. Yep, it's good.
I know for sure that Steven Crowder offered her at least an interview, and he said, "I'll give you a job if you want." So she definitely has a lot of conservatives that are willing to give her a job if she needs it.
Yep. Okay, here we go. Here's another one.
Repetitive programming. They keep repeatedly telling you that this man is a racist. They repetitively program you. They've been doing it for centuries. I'm sorry, for decades.
Yeah.
I remember the news only came on twice a day, at 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Now the shit comes on all day long. All day long. They just repetitively program you. They do it through the television, because that's where they put the lies at, on the news, and they put the truth in the movies. You just got to figure out what movie we're in right now. Somebody made a mention of The Simpsons. Yeah, the truth is that in The Simpsons, and that ain't a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that The Simpsons, for me, there was an episode, Little Lisa. 1993. It was called the Springfield Riots. I'll never forget it. They burned down the town, and little Lisa was standing in front of a sign that said "Justice for George." How the hell did they know? Or the Simpsons said, "Lucky." Do they predict the future? Do they know what's gonna happen? How do they know? Was that pre-planned? I don't know. You tell me.
Simpsons knows everything.
Yep.
Wait, what's going on?
Just having a very stirring conversation today.
Yeah. We talk about politics and we help people wake up to the reality of the world.
Oh, but that's not domestic terrorism, you know. If I do it on the left, it's not domestic terrorism. But if someone on the right does it, it's domestic terrorism, you know.
Yeah.
That's the exact
That's
narrative
what
they're
they
painting.
think.
That's what exactly what it is. Sorry, we're a little bit behind in the queue, guys.
Yes,
kind
we're
of,
trying to run through them.
Yeah, here we go. Keep going here. Houses.
Black Lives Matter took over a whole state. They took over a whole state. They took over a whole police station. I'm sorry. That sounds a little terroristic to me. I'm sorry. It's true. They took over a whole police station. They was on top of the police station. They ran the police out. Where does that happen at? That sounds like a scene out of a movie. That doesn't happen. Really? You mean to tell me all the equipment, all the ammunition at one police station, they couldn't hold back all the... Come on, give me a break. Give me a break. Give me a break. More shit on the television.
They were told to stand down. Yeah, those cops were told to stand down by the Seattle mayor. They were told, stand down, let them in. And if you ask me,
ridiculous.
As soon as they created that autonomous zone, okay, you know what they should have done? They should have taken Abrams tanks, and they should have taken Bradley troop carriers. Okay, they should have taken those things, marched them right into the center of town. They should have stood up out of the one guy stand up out of the tank with a megaphone. Okay, I'm talking so loud that everybody in the autonomous zone can hear it. And he should just sat there and said, "Y'all have 30 seconds to get out of the zone. Anyone left inside will be arrested and tried for domestic terrorism." The end. Problem solved. There's this whole batting around the bushes kind of crap. I hate that. And I understand that obviously there was no way that the Washington governor was going to do it. There was no way the Seattle mayor was going to do it. But I was just sitting there hoping, just please, somebody call in the National Guard and say, get in there and end this. Because this, inside of America, that is called foreign takeover. So you should treat that as an act of war against the United States.
They declared themselves a foreign nation. Okay.
Yeah,
well, guess
exactly.
what? We don't have to supply you electricity because
exactly.
if you're not paying us for it.
Water should have been cut off. They should have been like, okay, you know what? You set up this zone. That's like a foreign force, like Russia walking into Los Angeles or something, landing on Los Angeles coast and setting up a board around it and saying, this is our city now. That would have been an act of war. We would have gone in there. We would have taken care of the problem. We would have fought them off. That would not have stood. But this autonomous zone, that stood. And that right there, I cannot in good conscience say that should have happened at all. It shouldn't have happened. And it definitely should not have stayed for the period of time. It any more than a day, and even less than that. It shouldn't have stayed for that long. And the fact that it happened twice was even worse.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. All right, here we go. Here's another one.
Or scared.
Because he got something on all of them. They're scared of him because he got something on all of them. He got them all by the damn balls, and they deserve it at least so, because they are unrighteous and evil pedophiles.
Yeah, they are. It really is absolutely evil. Just the whole with Biden, you can spend 2 minutes online, look up Biden pedophilia or something like that on Google, and you're going to see some really creepy pictures. Yeah, terrible results. I mean, you're not going to see anything that's graphically obscene or anything, but you're going to see stuff that sits there, and you're going to go like, "What in the heck?" For instance, there was a photo shoot that I saw where it was a senator with his wife and his daughter. Right, his senator is standing on one side of the family, and Biden standing on the other side. It went senator, and then his wife, and then his daughter, and then Biden standing there. Okay, and while they're on video taking the photo shoot, you know what Biden does? He leans down, he wraps his hand around their daughter, okay, and whispers in her ear, and she's leaning away from him like he's got some kind of poisonous breath.
Which I'm sure he does.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, here we go. Here's another one.
And the reason they're scared, man, is because Trump has no loyalty to them. He doesn't care about them.
Yes, exactly. Yes, Trump. He doesn't care about him. He wanted re-election, but it wasn't like the end of the world for him because he's got a business to go back to, right?
Yeah.
So he wasn't the career politician that the only thing they care about is re-election, re-election, re-election. I want to get in. I don't care what it's going to take to get me there. I'm going to bury people in the ground like we were talking about earlier. Trump shifts up the usual stir of politicians and wanting to and working for this or that, and you have to have the goals. They go in, they say, I promise that in my presidency, I am going to get this done. I am going to be this good. I'm going to be that good. I'm going to do this and that for you. And they go in and they do nothing done. Trump went in and he said, I'm going to fix this, 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 and this. I'm going to do this,
And
this,
then
this,
he
and this.
did.
And he did that. I'm going to build a wall. He built the wall. I'm going to help the Veterans Association. He helped the Veterans Association. He helped so much stuff. I'm going to help the economy. He helped the economy in the way that no president has ever done before at all.
And you got to remember, he didn't do that by executive fiat like Biden has. He didn't sign executive order, okay, build the wall. He didn't sign executive order, okay, lower premiums. He went through the current system, which is how it's designed to make sure he can't just do what he wants, which is what Biden is completely avoiding. He's saying, you know what, I don't care. I want to do this or this executive order, and so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's going on. He was doing. He went through the right channels, and then there was times where he's like, okay, this really needs to happen. I need to help the economy. We're in trouble. And then he had to do stuff like government shutdowns. He's like, we're not going to sit there and argue about this. This isn't something that really should be argued about. This is something that both sides should agree on, right? I need to help you guys see this. And then there were government shutdowns and stuff like that. I mean, it's just things that you're just like, hey guys, we need to have a little bit more common sense here. And he went in and he was the perfect person at the perfect time. But I can't think of anybody else who could have handled the virus better. I can't think of anybody else who could have done a better job with the economy. He was the perfect person.
Yep, and Biden was saying, listen, I have a plan that would be so much better than his. And then he gets into office, and what does he say?
And he's done nothing.
Yep, well, we don't have a plan anymore. What do you mean you don't have a plan?
Yeah, you got people on one of his promises, a $2,000 a month check. Oh my gosh, what that would do to the economy. Oh, we're already going to be paying right now at our trillions of dollars in debt. We're going to be paying.
Adding trillions to it.
Yeah, and adding trillions to it. We were to start right now. We wouldn't pay off the debt until our great grandchildren, right? That's so stinking much money, right? If you start sending $2,000 a month to every family in the United States, or to every individual over 18 without a job, you're going to be spending.
Yeah,
we're not even a country anymore at that point. We're just a little subsidiary of other countries who own us.
Yeah, you take those. I mean, and on top of that, if they just print the money, that is going to raise the inflation. Our money will become worthless. I mean, you take those $2,000 or even the $1,400 that he was going back on, times 300 million Americans, you get $600 billion. Okay, that is not a small chunk of change.
Yeah, no, it's really not. That's not the small is not the word I would use to describe $1 trillion. Small isn't the word I would use to describe $1 million. Definitely not a billion, and we're just it's high already, and we're just becoming this country that's just in debt, and everyone's like, why is the United States in debt? And, we shouldn't be.
Yep.
We are great.
We're the greatest country out there.
Yeah, exactly. We shouldn't be, and we're being dragged through the mud by people who don't care about the country. They just care about their jobs. They just care about helping themselves, and that is the worst form of people to have in the government.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Here's another one.
My girl just cheated on me with my best friend. What should I do?
I do not know.
Listen to our show. That's what you need to do.
He saw that they were taking the American people's tax dollars and they were not using them to help America. He saw the unfair trade deal that was going on in China. He saw what these major corporations and all these evil politicians were doing to the American people, and he said, no more, game, stop.
Yeah, exactly. He is not a
Exactly,
guy
yeah.
that says, I'm going to sit here and we're going to bat this around the bush for, a month
Year or
or 2
two.
months or 3 months or 6 months. We're not going to sit there and bat this around the bush forever. He's like, this is a problem. It needs fixing. We're going to do it now.
Well,
Let's fix
and
it. Go.
a lot of these politicians, they obviously don't love the country because, you can just tell by the way they talk about the country, and
It's the action speaks so loud. I can't hear
it's
you're saying stuff.
Say that again?
It's the action speaks so loud. I can't hear what you're saying stuff.
Yeah. But President Trump did that. His actions speak so loud, but his actions, they're saying he does love this country, right? If he had not run for president, he would have been a 70-year-old, very well off. I mean, extremely well off guy. He could have retired, given the business to his family, said, okay, you run this. I'm going to retire in Florida and enjoy my life. And instead, what he did is he said, no, I love this country so much that I don't want to see it run into the ground. I'm going to run for president. I'm going to spend my own money. I'm going to take no salary. I'm going to spend my time and get a ton of stress and get harassed by the press because I love this country so much that I'm willing to go through all that crap just to try and help it.
Exactly. His salary was donated, okay? You're not going to see a career politician do that. Absolutely not. His salary was donated. His company was hurt so much, right? Yeah. In the end, right now, even with how much has been hurt, he can still provide a very healthy lifestyle for him, his children, his grandchildren, probably even his great-grandchildren, right? They're going to have that's how much money he has. But the amount of money that he lost is still so much, and he lost that because he cared so much, because he didn't play the games. He didn't sit there. He didn't work for sponsorship from that. He didn't work from this person helping him. He didn't work for every single person trying to just I'm going to make sure that I get a sponsor this from this person and this person and this person. And that's what makes him such a great president, even more so, because he doesn't have to work and cater to people's wishes in order to be able to become president and then be held to his word, because he keeps to his word. And so he wasn't held to his word because he paid for it himself largely, right? He worked. He says, I want to be president. I love this country. And you know what? I got the money, so let's go. And then he did. And he was great.
Exactly.
All right, here we go. Here's another one. Trump.
But look how all of a sudden we found out that Trump wasn't the one that was colluding with Russia. It was actually the Democrats. When is that going to come out? I can't wait for the truth to come out, because when they start holding some of these military tribunals, a lot of people are going to be surprised. They handed down over 500,000 secret indictments. Folks are going to be tried. I cannot wait for the truth to come out, because people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe this person. Oh my God, I can't believe this person. Oh my God, you're still alive? Watch what happens. People's heads are going to spin.
Yeah, I don't really know about the military tribunals and stuff, so I'm not going to speak to that. But I will just say that the amount of, okay, for instance, like with the fraud, right? You had people who on Trump's legal team were finding out from Germany and from the Dominion machines. They were coming in, they were being like, okay, wait a second, we've done this stuff and we've done our research now, and we found out that Dominion hasn't only affected and all the whole voting fraud and everything. They haven't just affected the votes here in the U.S. No, gosh, no. They've affected the votes in many other countries as well. One of the
wow,
I don't know his name, but he was one of the senior on Trump's legal team. He said that the amount of fraud that they discovered is so much so that it is the biggest criminal act in the history of the entire world. That's
wow.
Concerning on a scale that should have everyone quaking, right? That everyone should be shaking, right? When I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh. The guy said that when this comes out, the reveal from how the sheer massive amount of fraud is just unbelievable. And that's really a scary thought. So I mean, some people might say I don't believe that. That just sounds like a conspiracy theory. And I will say that, yeah, that does sound kind of extreme. But when you look at the evidence, when you see people here in the U.S., and we'll cover this in a later episode in more detail, when you hear people in the U.S., they're bringing in suitcase fulls of fake filled-in ballots, throwing them under these tables, and then later on these security cameras, you can see them coming out and shoving these, what looks like, you can't see the detail on paper, you just see these white papers thrown in out of this suitcase brought in by some random dude out of a truck, thrown in to the voting machines. And you're like, okay, I don't care. Those are for votes for Trump or Biden. That's wrong, right? That shouldn't have been happening. And then you look at the numbers and you can see, okay, that was obviously Biden because his numbers. Okay, for instance, like in Michigan, if you watch Biden's numbers,
that's the most obvious one.
Yeah, by time, you can just watch them just go straight. I mean, like they jumped up. All of a sudden, there's like 100,000 votes or something like that got added. Just boop, and his vote went up way high. Right? They just countered it, jumped right way above Trump's vote. But then everything before that, it's just this gradual incline as votes slowly get counted and come in, and then all of a sudden they get booted up. It's like an adrenaline shot, and you're like,
something's
wait a second,
off here.
Yeah, that doesn't feel right? There's a feeling you get there. You just look at that. You're like, okay, I'm a person. I'm a human being with common sense. And when I see a statistical graph that has followed the same kind of thing all the time, you look at past elections, it does the same thing. It's a gradual incline as they climb up the graph, right? Votes come in, they count them up. They might, if you look really close at them, it might be like jagged like stairs coming up, but it's gradual, right? And then you see a jump. It's like the difference between stepping up a stair and trying to jump up to the top of a building from the ground. You're just looking at it, you're like, yeah, I don't think that makes sense.
Yeah. And
yep.
I've seen a very funny meme. It was the Buccaneers versus the Chiefs, and it said, all right, and in the last minute, the Chiefs won by 168,000 points.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one too, yeah. Okay, wait, here we go. Here's another one.
There were people from...
I'm sorry.
Oops.
Sorry, Dale.
I agree with you guys what you're talking about. A couple things. Why isn't anybody talking about Ghislaine, Epstein's partner in crime? Where'd she go? Nobody's talking about it. Why isn't nobody talking about, and it made local headlines, but not national, Kumo. They came out that he hid the reports from the feds from the COVID thing for the nursing homes.
Yep.
Why aren't they talking about that? Why are they just talking about this dog and pony show? This bullshit impeachment, which it ain't going to happen. But why aren't anybody asking about those?
Yep. There's actually evidence of in Michigan, whatever her name is, the governor of Michigan. She actually sent in young people, like 20 years or whatever. She sent them in, and they were positive COVID cases. She sent them into nursing homes. And if you ask me, I sit there and look at that, and I'm like, okay, what is the reason she did it? Did she do that because she wanted a volunteer service in this individual nursing home? No, that obviously wasn't the reason, right? They didn't go in there to do service. Why did she do that? And I literally look at that, I'm like, okay, I've looked at all the possible answers. Okay, I've studied the point, right? You gotta make sure you study the point. You gotta get all the perspectives. Why did this happen? Okay, you look at it. There is no reason that woman did that except for pure evil, right? What twisted mentality makes you send positive COVID patients into the most high-risk areas for people, and then you had massive nursing home deaths? I don't know why. I don't know what her motivation was. She hadn't said anything. She's denied it. But there is evidence of her sending these people in. A couple different, I know that Newsmax has reported on it. I think Fox did a thing on Tucker Carlson about it, and yeah, he's an opinion show, but it's just stuff that makes you just sit there and go, that's just, that's wrong. That shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
It's evil. Okay, here we go. Here's another one.
And man, that's the real problem with the Republican representation we have in government is they're spineless and they're weak. And eventually they cave to what the Democrats want and not stand up for their constituents like they're put in office to.
Exactly. Yep. It's just cave. They just give up for the constituents, and they don't really keep out. They don't keep an eye out for the common person. They're just there for the re-election. They're there for the money. They don't care about this or that. They're just so selfish, so self-centered, and it's horrible to think that the people in the government of the greatest country in the world are so self-righteous and evil that you would expect them to be in some third world nation taking advantage of everything, right? You have instances of like humanitarian relief in Africa. Where they send in just massive trucks full of food and money and clothing and everything. They send these trucks in communities, but they go through the government first. And the government stops them. That's the government stops them because they want to, because by having the food and the clothing and everything, they can control the poor communities that really need that. That's evil, and it's not the same thing, but you're seeing that kind of attitude of controlling people through money or through lies and deceit and influence, and that's something that, as this being the greatest country in the world and everything, it's appalling to see, and it really scares me because I don't know what the future holds, right? You don't know what's going to happen. And normally you'd be able to say, okay, it's just going to be cool. We're going to argue about this until the next election, and then something else is going to happen. But this is different, right? This isn't, I don't like this person because of whatever it was. I don't like this person because of whatever it was. This is different now, right? We're in different territory. This is a fight for the survival of the United States of America.
And you can tell that this is different. I mean, you look at it. Okay, the past couple presidents signed like a max of, I think, 6 executive orders in the first week, whereas Biden signed 40. Right? They are done playing in the system, and they are done trying to hide what they're doing. They are out in the open. They are saying, yeah, we don't care if you see us, because they have accumulated enough power that they think that they can do what they want.
Yep. And eventually it's going to come to heads, and you're going to see stuff happening. You're going to see stuff going down. You're just going to be like, this was coming, it's like the Capitol Hill thing. You're like, this was a horrible thing, that people died and that there were people hurt and stuff like that. But you look at it and you're like, I understand where they were coming from, right? This wasn't unexpected. These are people who've been pushed and beat and hit, and they've turned the other cheek. They've looked the other way. They've been calm. They've been polite. They haven't gone back out and killed people like BLM is doing in Antifa. They haven't gone back out and do that. They haven't slandered every single person's name to the point that they can't do anything. They haven't blacklisted everybody that says something contrary. They don't cancel culture everybody. And they're the ones that are being exposed to this, and they're like, okay, you know what? That was it. That was the final straw. That's where the anger came from in the Capitol riots. That's why they ragged on.
Yep.
Here we go, another one. Him in the head.
But Trump told you he wanted to open up states. He said they won't let me. How come nobody asked who they was? When he talks about the deep state, how come nobody don't know what they are? Nobody wants to know who they are? These people have been doing chaotic stuff all around the world for centuries, people. Centuries.
Yeah, okay. You don't see it.
It's been infiltrated. It's been sabotaged. BLM was designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to push a market society, to push communism, to push socialism. Black Lives Matter have done nothing but paint the streets and design cute little T-shirts. Oh, they tore down statues and they burned cities, but that's not terrorism. That's not. And you can also protest in the Black Lives Matter and not have to worry about catching COVID, because ain't nobody have no goddamn mask or nobody but social distancing. I'm done.
That's a really good point. The Trump protests, they keep bringing back up, these people didn't have masks on. They didn't have masks on. What the heck is this about? You look at the BLM protest, there ain't a single person wearing a mask except for the people that are trying to cover up their face because they're the frontline agitators, right? And they're not wearing a COVID mask. No, they're wearing like a balaclava. They're just trying to get their face from being seen, right? They aren't sitting in these riots and they're covering their faces up. They're just there to attack. they aren't trying to help nobody. They're just going in and they're being violent because they're being paid to. This is what their job is, right? I don't see any other way to look at that. You see evidence of it being a job, right? So there's that. But then also, in a common sense point of view, you look at it and you go, okay, what would be someone's motivation, especially if they know otherwise, for going in and inciting violence and burning down cities, right? You can't look at these experiences and say, especially for the first-hand accounts of people who are like, this was my business that I worked for all my life, you know. There's one family that owned a corner shop mall, and they slept in the building above, and they were asleep when BLM came in and started burning the building down. They got out of the fire escape, and it was a shop that the man's father had established, and that was their entire livelihood, right? Their whole livelihood gone because BLM. They weren't violent. They didn't have any signs in the windows. BLM just walked through the city. They saw something on the corner. There wasn't anything there that you would have said, oh, that's a Trump sign, so that's why they attacked it. No, they just walked through because they wanted to burn it down. They wanted to create violence, and so that's what they did. And that, on the most basic macroscopic scale, is just the representation of evil, right? To burn somebody's house, building, livelihood, home down for the sake of burning it down is unverifiably just wrong. It should never have happened.
And it's not only wrong, it's evil.
Yeah, that's what it is. It is. It's horrible. It really is. All right, here we go. Here's another one.
That's bullshit, man. The BLM movement did not go away overnight. They rioted for 70 or 80 days, and they were still rioting in Portland up until maybe a month or two ago. That's just ridiculous. It is a Marxist organization that, you know, is not everything it's shaped up to be, but it's also a social revolution. You know, domestic terrorism is choking out somebody on national TV over $20.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't. When I said, I guess that was, a bit of an overstatement earlier when I said they disappeared overnight. They weren't gone immediately, right? There were still people who believed in the movement who continued doing it. But I'm saying
you were
that
kind of talking about the media really tried to hush it under the rug as soon as possible once they saw it was turning bad.
Yeah, instead of talking about how these are peaceful protests, they just stopped talking about it altogether. And all the funding disappeared, and that's why all the riots started dying down, because you were seeing these riots all over the country, right? They were happening all over the place, and then all of a sudden they just became very localized and isolated. There was a couple of them happening. There weren't very many, and that's the best evidence of it, is that there were just refined, isolated instances happening, but there wasn't this mass. I don't call it a social uprising, because a social uprising is, you know, you're fighting for social justice, like the civil rights movement. You know, that was a social uprising. That needed to happen. Segregation is wrong. Segregation is evil, right? But you're having, that's a social movement. But this wasn't. BLM isn't a social movement. BLM is a, I don't know. You can't call that. It's not a business movement, even though it's being funded by people with private interests. It's really, I think it's kind of a new thing, right? It's something the U.S. hasn't really, I don't think, experienced before, right? We've had social movements where there's hundreds or thousands of people who will gather and they will protest or they will rally, right? That's one thing, like civil rights movement, stuff like that, you know, March on Washington. But with this is a private interest thing, right? They wanted Biden to win. They have personal goals in socialism because it brings them money and it brings them power. This isn't a working for the betterment of America kind of thing. That wasn't, because everything that in the past, in the history of the United States, things that have been something that you could call a social movement, but they were for negative effect, those are things that they dissipated. They dissipated more rapidly, right? There wasn't giant followings of them like there are for the hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions of people who are supporting BLM. That is the kind of population you would expect behind a social movement, and it isn't a social movement. It's one in disguise, right? They call it a social movement. They call it working for the betterment of Black lives. They're working to help
it does
Black
nothing.
people, but it does nothing. It creates fear, you know, because now, okay, in terms of domestic terrorism and what Black Lives Matter has really done for people, here's the bottom line. Black Lives Matter has created a fear aspect, right? I look at if I'm walking in public now, right, and I see someone with a Black Lives Matter shirt on, I'm keeping my eye on them like they have a gun pointed at me, and I don't know if they're going to pull a trigger, right? And in all honesty, because of Black Lives Matter and the population inside of it, I keep my eye on Black people more now, and I'm ashamed to say that, but that's really what it is, because I've seen people for months that were going out, and they were burning cities to the ground, ruining people's lives. And you look at that and you go, how can that be good? How can this be something people stand for? And I try to fight that fear, and I personally try to fight that fear. I don't want to look at Black people and go, I associate you with Black Lives Matter. I don't want that in my life. And so I work to fight that every time I see somebody.
And thankfully, I think a majority of white, Black, Asian, everyone, and are looking at Black Lives Matter and saying, that's terrible, including,
yes,
I think a large swath of Black people look at that and say, well, you don't represent us. What the heck are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. And so that's one of the reasons that I work to fight against that stereotype that Black Lives Matter has created, because it's not true, right? It's something that they've created. It's a stereotype that's been impressed on people, and it got me. And and I'm cautious now. I'm aware of it, but I don't believe it, right? It's something that when my better judgment actually comes into my head, and it's not pure instinct, that I actually go, okay, wait a second. That guy isn't bad. He's probably a good man. I can see them sitting there with their families. I can see them being just like every other single person. There's no racial difference whatsoever. And then I'm like, okay, you know what? This isn't a person who's going to go through Lafayette, or he's going to go through anywhere, and he's going to go and burn that city down. He's going to go through Portland, and he's going to burn that. That's not the kind of person that he is. That's not what the majority of Black people are. The majority of them are like, this is wrong. We don't believe this. You don't represent us.
And I think a lot of the time that's what politicians do, is they look at Black people and they say, okay, listen, they overwhelmingly vote Democrat, and we know that a majority of them are not going to go through Portland. They're not going to go through small towns all across America. They're not going to go through big towns and riot. They're just going to kind of be normal, average, good Americans. But as long as we can convince them that we are for them, even though we're not, even though a lot of what we do hurts them, if they can convince them that say, no, we're for you, keep voting for us, then that's where they're going to keep staying strong, is they're going to keep talking to them like they're sheep and they're voting block, and there's nothing to change about that.
Yep, and it was a horrible stereotype to have painted that all Black people, no matter what their beliefs, are going to vote for Black Lives Matter, because that's not true. I know individuals who are Black that are amazing people, and they don't believe in it, right? They don't like this. They look at that and they go, no, that's not right. And then you have people like on YouTube, you got the Hodge twins, right? Those guys, you couldn't get any more red-blooded American if you were in the most redneck small-town USA town in the entire country. Those guys are amazing. I love the Hodge twins, right? But they don't believe in it, and they have worked to fight against the stereotype, because it's not like every person has sit there and they really genuinely believe in their hearts that their Black people say, this is what we support, right? They're working against that stereotype. That's the stereotype that BLM has painted. They've painted the stereotype that you give us what we want, or we're going to burn your city down, and that is horrible, right? And so to work against that, it's amazing.
That's honestly, end racism is their cry. That's going to breed more racism, because kind of what you were talking about, you're a very standard, good Christian American, but when you watch BLM and they say, if you don't give Black people, equal rights, even though they already have them, if a lot of people are going to go, okay, so they're
I feel
rioting
threatened.
because, yeah, a lot of people are going to say, I feel threatened, and they're rioting because they're black. Even though, right, that's not, it should, it's just ridiculous that this is going to cause more racism by the fact that people look at it and say, oh, if black people do this, then they must be terrible people, right? People are going to start thinking like that, which is a terrible way to think, and it's not true at all. But just because of the example of the few, I think it's going to breed more racism through that.
Yep, the example of the few creating a false narrative has created a narrative view for the many, and it's horrible. Okay, let's get another message in here.
This pre-pandemic was so they can overturn an election and take over America. They wanted to take us over. People don't understand that James Bond spy shit is some real shit. You got Democratic governors who are caught taking pictures, selfies with Chinese spies. Google it, look it up. I believe it's the governor of Georgia, some Democratic dude who's got pictures with a Chinese spy. Wait a minute now. Whose side are you on?
Yeah, are you on the side of America or you're on the side of China? Because you're right now you're working quote unquote for America, but who are you actually working for?
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and do another one here. Here, Spence, can you play another one?
Yeah, no problem.
Switching channels, little fucking racists.
Well, if we could keep this clean, that would be appreciated.
Yep, please keep it clean. And that's I have to say right here what he just said. That's a big problem with BLM, right? Because I try to speech against the stereotype, right? I hate that stereotype. That's an evil thing that BLM has done to paint that stereotype, right? That's bad. But when you talk about it, some people hear that and they're like, you're a racist, right? How dare you say that you believe in that stereotype? And I'm like, it's not like I went out and I said, I hate black people. I'm a racist and I'm going to start using slurs and I'm going to be a horrible, despicable human racist being, right? No, I never said that. I'm saying that there is an organization out there that has worked for evil, really. They've worked against such a great number of people that are great people. I have never said in my whole life that black people are bad or they're inferior or any horribly racist thing like that. But in order to talk about BLM and the domestic terrorism, you have to talk about the stereotype that they painted that has worked against black people. You have to talk about that. If you don't talk about that, nothing's going to change, right? It has to be mentioned. It has to be talked about. The things that sit in silence are the things that fester and grow, right? So
yep,
it's a dangerous thing to talk about because it can easily be misconstrued as being racist. But in reality, if you sit there and you listen to what people are saying when they're trying to say, when they're trying to talk about this stuff, people sit there and listen, then they'll understand, oh, they're not saying that black people are terrible. They're not being racist. What they're saying is that BLM is being racist. They're saying that BLM is being horrible, that they are working against people and that they are working against, they're working to hurt people, right? That's what I'm trying to say. But it's a fine line to tread, and it's one that it's very dangerous in this modern society where even if you even speak out against BLM saying that it's horrible, if you were to do that in a public situation, around people with a little bit of power who could, or for instance, in California, you see people that are getting arrested for speaking out against BLM on Twitter and stuff like that. You see that? That's like what the heck? This is supposed to be free speech. Like, this isn't right. You should be able to say and be able to speak out. That's what press is about. That's what freedom of the press is. It's bringing opinions, right? As long as you're not saying racist, horrible things, is bringing opinions and bringing facts out. That's why you have opinion session. That's why you have facts that can bring about to the thing. Perspectives are facts and opinions mixed together. And the most pure perspective is the one that's all fact. But in reality, let's face it, every single person in the world is biased one way or another, right? and you need
That's
to make
true.
sure that you try to be as true as possible. And the truth is, BLM has not helped the black population. They have not helped the white population. They have not helped the Asian population. They haven't helped anybody of this racial divide that they're talking about. They haven't worked on any
They
side
haven't helped
to help.
society at all.
Yeah, they haven't helped in any way, any group of any people. What they've helped is a very select group of people who work for power, who pay and back them to create fear and terror. And that is what they have. That's what they've really done.
Yep, all at the cost of us. All at the cost
All at the cost of us.
of citizens.
Yep, exactly. All right, here goes another one.
There's a reporting show in New Jersey. It's called Chasing New Jersey. It's basically where reporters have to report their stories from their cell phones. You know what I mean? So anybody can be a reporter. You know what I'm saying? Their cell phones are the actual reporting. So it makes the reporting more valid because the person is actually standing there with the person that they're talking to. It's actual footage of whatever it is they're reporting on. And I think that that's the way that people can combat the mainstream media. They can have their minimized media stations where they can say, yo, this is what's actually going on in my town, or this is what's happening over here. Here's the video. This is what really happened over here. This is what really happened over here. These are the documents over here. Like, I think we can combat it like that.
That's a really good point, and that's something that I have to say I saw as a common trend that was happening during the riots and last summer. You saw that happening a lot. You had people going out who were, they may have had a little bit of a name, but they didn't have a lot, and what they really just had was maybe a GoPro, or they had their phone, right? And they're going out in the riots, and they were disguising themselves and getting first-hand footage, like the Drew Hernandez, a guy on that has an account on Instagram and his own podcast. And he runs a great program, and he went out in all the riots and at risk of his own life and limb, and he reported. There were times where they realized that he was reporting against them, or they recognized him or something like that, and he was attacked, right? And that's the best kind of reporting, because that's pure, right? When you get a person wwho shows up with a mainstream shows up with a camera after the fact, and they regurgitate one person's point of view, you commonly see on CNN. They regurgitate one person's point of view, or maybe if they even are regurgitating a police report, right? I can say police reports are probably much more factual, right? But everyone has bias. There's a possibility that there's bias in there. I'm not going to insinuate that, but they're just saying, that everyone's biased. But when you have someone who shows up after the fact and then they report on it, instead of someone who's there, that being there is how we got the best information. That's how we really found out what was happening during the protests and the riots. That's how we discovered that there were cops who were really being beaten, right? And we discovered, okay, because after the fact, anyone could have just made the claim, oh, that was just an accident, or that was actually a Trump person who was counter-protesting. They turn around and hurt that cop, even though the cop was 100 yards away from them fighting BLM. Doesn't matter what it is, they could have made the claim. But because you have that first person in the situation footage on phones, that's an interesting thing. I think we can cover that in a different episode. Something like private reporting, something like that.
I will add real quick that people act different when they know a camera's on them. If I know a camera's on me, I'll admit I try to act, a bit more formal, especially if I know that it's going to someone with some sort of, authority, whether that's someone who might see it for a job interview or applying for colleges or whatever. I act more professional on camera, whereas these people will act less violent and less insane on camera, but as soon as it's turned off, they go back to being crazy and doing the violent stuff that they were doing.
Yep, absolutely. That's a universal thing on all sides. People see a camera pointed at them and they want to act better. They want to look better on camera. And so after the fact news reporters getting an interview from a person, that person could be spouting lies, but they're going to look good doing it. But if you get a person in the situation who's recording a person without their knowledge throwing a Molotov cocktail at a cop, if that person knew that they were being filmed while they're throwing that Molotov cocktail at a cop, they aren't going to throw the Molotov cocktail most likely because they know that someone's going to see that. They could get in trouble, right? They don't do it. But when you see with all this stuff, we got the most honest information that we could have, and it was really a blessing for the whole country because that allowed us to have the straight facts, right? You're not getting, and Fox News is biased. Everybody is biased one way or another, right? So you're getting the purest information because after the fact, those guys that do these disguises, they go in the crowds and they get this information. After they had shown the information, they might put in some of their own commentary. But as long as you're regurgitating fact and you are talking about what actually happened there, or you're bringing attention to the corner of the screen to see that this happened over here, which someone might not have noticed when they watch the video. That's not opinion. That's just clarification. There's differences there, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Do another one. Here we go.
Yeah, television. If you can't, people can't look at the news, the television now, and see the differences and what is happening. You got to be crazy. These people are insane. They actually want people to believe this. And then another thing, the inauguration. He didn't get driven in on a military plane. He had to take a private jet. Who paid for the jet? And why did he have to take a private jet? Why was he so different than any other president? He didn't even get sworn in at the right time. Aren't you supposed to get sworn in at 12:01 p.m.? He got sworn in before 12. So right there was a red flag for me. And why didn't you put your hand on the Bible? Why didn't you put your hand on the Bible? Why was the Bible upside down? Why you ain't in the White House? Why the military there and you not there? Those little things I've been asking myself. Why the military there? Why they trying to keep you out? Why are you not riding around? And I don't care what he riding around on now. It looked like they painted and they got the paint thing. They got it wrong. Because the little plane he flew on.
I will I will say something funny. Just for everyone's knowledge, President Donald J. Trump was the first person to have a female vice president because Kamala Harris was sworn in before noon while President Trump was still president. So he actually did have the first black, Hispanic, Asian, I don't know what else she's claiming, female vice president.
Nice.
So just so you know that.
That's funny. That's pretty good. All right, here's another one.
If you look at the crimes in which his son is being accused of around the world, and look who is accused of it with Biden, they've done all kind of heinous and acts against humanity, against children. But this is the type of people we want in office. This is crazy. They want to keep up the buffoonery they've been doing all these years, and Trump said, hell no, you're not doing it anymore.
Yep. That's exactly right. I think, unless you have a comment, Colson, we can probably take one more, and then we might have to get going.
Yep, we've had about a 2-hour period here, guys, and I've really enjoyed being with you all. So we'll go ahead and take one more comment here, and we'll see where we go from there.
Come on, man. You know the thing.
I think we'll take one more than that.
You know the thing.
Chinese did create it. They did. The top coronavirus specialist in the world is a woman named Xi Zhengai. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's Asian, so I can't pronounce it. But she works for the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and she is the top coronavirus specialist in the world. They created a hybrid virus in 2015 that attacks the HeLa in the immune system. You can go look it up on Wikipedia. It's all right there. And they were warned about this. They were warned about the dangerousness of this. Now, the coronavirus that they created in 2015 is a 96% match to the one that we're experiencing now. All we, the people, have to do is figure out, is that 4% that's difference? Is it man-made or is it natural? And if it is, how so?
Yeah, I don't really know a lot about both spectrums of Wuhan, or I've never heard that name before for her. I don't really know a lot about that. Spencer, it's up to you. We can go ahead now, or we can take one more comment.
I'll just add, my thoughts on this, and then we can go.
Okay, that's good.
So my thinking on this, in terms of Wuhan, basically, there's evidence in a lot of ways that points to the Chinese government having definitely had a hand in this, especially in terms of, I mean, at the very least, it is incompetence by the Chinese government that they put a lab with dangerous biochemicals and biological agents in a very populous area. So at the very least, it is incompetence by the Chinese government. And at the very worst, there's a definite possibility and likelihood that the Chinese engineered and messed with this virus, or maybe intentionally released it. And so I'm not going to completely discredit that thinking. I think there is evidence that points towards that.
Yep, and there's in the realm of the virus. I mean, and all the different theories that are out there and what's going around. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns in it, right? We don't know exactly where it came from. We're hoping that the vaccines and treatments that we're hoping that they're going to be effective all the way. There's a lot of unknowns, and it's scary to think about something that has affected the world so dramatically, and yet we know so little about it. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I don't have a lot of information on. I spend more of my time studying around politics. COVID has been something that is very, very vast, very detailed. I think it can seem confusing to a lot of people. I think that's one of the reasons why it's caused confusion, is because people don't really understand it. They don't know how it works. They don't understand, how this and that happens. They don't understand where it came from. Origin helps people to understand things, and we don't know what happened.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
I think that's a pretty good place to end. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've had a great day. Thank you guys, everyone, for showing up. We plan on doing this pretty often, so I'll be sending out or at least posting, I guess, on here, scheduling another episode. That'll be day 2. We'll probably pick up somewhere along some of the topics we've done today, but thank everyone for showing up. We've had a great day.
Yeah.
My name is Colton.
My name is Spencer. We're 18 and American.
And we're signing off.
See you guys.
Everyone have a good day. Bye, guys.